I'm the Director General of the Institute for Political and International Studies. Um, for those who are not familiar with the Institute, uh, the Institute for Political and International Studies is the leading think tank in Iran affiliated to Iranian Foreign Ministry and has been very active in this field of international relations and international law during last 4 decades. I think most of you are familiar with our activities and our flagship event, which is called Tehran Dialogue Forum, and will be held very soon in Tehran. Today, we are going to discuss one of the most important developments in the whole world during last 2 months. And as you are aware, the whole world has been witnessing this very unprovoked, unlawful aggression against Iran by the US and Israeli regime. As you know, Iran has been very actively involved in a very serious and result-oriented diplomatic process during last few months. And despite the fact that Iran has been with utmost flexibility involved in this diplomatic process, has been under aggression twice during last 8-9 months. This war started with a very wide range of aggression, war crimes, and violations of international law, including an attack on the house of the Supreme Leader of Iran, attack on civilian targets, including a primary school in Minab, as was called by Americans to break the spirit of Iranians by a double tap missile strike, which is very unfortunate. And I'm sure you are aware of what happened next, as I said, with the wide range of aggressions and war crimes by this coordinated and joint aggression against Iran. Today we are hosting this online panel with the presence of a number of Iranian academics and very well-known professors and researchers who are here with me now. And I will go through the introduction, a brief introduction of my guests here at the IPIS. On my left, I have Professor Kazem Sajjadpour, who is a professor at the School of International Law, International Relations. Then I have Dr. Dehqani Firuzabadi, a professor at Allame Tabatabai University. Dr. Nasser Hadian, a distinguished professor at Tehran University. Ambassador Mohammad Farazmand is a retired diplomat who has been working for several decades in the region. And last but not the least, I have here with me Dr. Saeed Khatibzadeh, Deputy Foreign Minister and President of IPIS. We will discuss so many important topics, issues here in this panel, but for your information, our 3 major questions will go through. First of all, on the context, regional and international context in which this war happened and started, and the changes of this context after the war and during the war. The second major question is regarding the dynamism of this aggression, then ceasefire and peace negotiations, what happened during these the last 2 months. And the third question is about scenarios ahead, what we think will happen in the coming days and weeks and months. So these are three main questions. To start, I will talk to Dr. Sajjadpour to ask him what happened, in fact, what was behind the scene when the Americans and Israelis started this joint coordinated aggression against Iran.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let me first thank you and IPIS for having this very timely panel of discussion on very important issues of the day. In response to your question, I have a type of ABC. A, assumptions. I think the assumptions of Israelis and Americans, plus those who were behind the scenes supporting them, was based on a very fallacious, wrong assumption that Iran is weak. Iran is in its weakest position, and everything in disarray, and then we can bomb Iran and have a quick victory. So maybe you can say the second assumption beyond the Iranian weakness, which proved to be absolutely wrong. Iran is stronger today than they thought in the beginning of the war. The second assumption, I think, was a quick victory, a type of Venezuelan, let's say, model. This assumption, I think, was sold to Trump, and Trump was, of course, receptive to it, mostly by Netanyahu. As we see, it's not over reading. If you read New York Times report on April 7 by two investigative reporters of this newspaper, you see that how Netanyahu came on February 11th into the Situation Room at the White House and explained to the military and security officers of the United States that it can be a very quick, and he even showed clips on this type of. So the second assumption was that, and the third assumption was that as a superpower we can do everything. And I think it was wrong. Iran was not weak, and as you see, Iran has defended in a very asymmetrical war. It is two military power in the region and at the global stage, nuclear weapon state attacking a regional state, and so Iran has defended itself, and the assumptions proved to be wrong. I can go to detail later. But B, I think the building blocks of this, let's say, aggression, different tools in this box could be identified. First of all, that, of course, we have military capability, superiority, but I think they used everything during the last 2 months for containing Iran, defeating Iran, surrendering Iran, as they say. And I would just end in this part. I don't want to consume more time. Everything was weaponized and is still weaponized. Tweets, media, blockade, and so on and so on. Let me just go to my final point, which is C. I think they thought they can change the context, but the context, of course, was changed, but not to their benefit, especially by the last tool in their toolbox, that was, blockade of Iran. But still, you see the same assumption, that the blockade is going to yield to surrendering of Iran. So to put it tersely in response to your question, everything starts with a negative, wrong, erroneous reading of the situation, which is the cause of this whole fiasco that they have made in decision.
Thank you. Dr. Dehani, what Dr. Sajjadpour tells us regarding wrong assumptions, misperceptions, most probably coming from a measured response and restraint of Iran for few years back regarding different incidents in the region regarding Iran. What do you think, besides all these incentives, what were the main objectives of Israelis and Americans, if we can distinct among their objectives? What are the common objectives? What are their distinct objectives to attack Iran?
Yeah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, thank you for having me here in distinguished panels. It is my pleasure. I add a few sentences to Dr. Sajjad's analysis. That's absolutely, I agree that the United States and Israelis waged aggression against Iran based on unfounded and false information. I explained three concepts more: miscalculation, misperceptions, misinformation, and misunderstanding of the situation in Iran and the whole entity of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the gap between the or so-called gap between nations and the government. And because the sources of information for decision makers in the United States is a so-called dissident in Iranian dissident in overseas, they committed miscalculations about the capabilities of the Iran, the national power of Iran, the support of the people from the state and the government. It is very important, and I think the nature of war is not just a bilateral or trilateral war. It is, we can analyze the war at three levels. I think, first of all, it is a national war or bilateral or trilateral war between Iran, Israel, Zionist regime, and Iran, United States. But of course, it is also a regional war. Despite of the claim of the Arab countries in the south of the Persian Gulf that they have been indifferent or neutral, but actually they are a part of the war. At least they had access to the United States to use the basis for attacking Iran. And I heard that the missiles that attacked the primary schools in Mina was launched from the UAE. I heard. That's at all they were not, and they are not indifferent. They are part of the struggle, and they are part of the battle. Then the war is actually a regional war. Also, it is an international war because one part of the aggressors, or what part of the war is a major international power, the United States. The other one is the regional power, and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz deeply influenced the international economy. Then it is not just as they called Iran war. It is their war, and it is a regional and international war against Iran, and the involvement the NATO in this war, at least in defense against our missiles, then they were directly or indirectly involved in the war. But I think then they waged their aggression against Iran based on misinformation, miscalculations. They, as Dr. Sajjad would explain, they didn't realize that the people of Iran, the nationalism in Iran, the holy nationalism in Iran is so strong. And despite of some criticism of the system, but in the time of the war, they are behind the the political system and the Islamic Republic of Iran. But regarding to the objectives and goals of the aggressors, I believe that fundamentally there is no difference between the United States and the Israeli regime. I think there is a difference between the priorities of these objectives and goals. I think the first objective was, I think, disintegration and dismembering of the Iran, regardless of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And in the second place was, I think, regime change. And as Dr. Sajjad would explain, in 4 or 3 days, to topple the Islamic Republic of Iran, or at least change of structure, change of identity, change the nature and the behavior of Iran. And the first objective was change of regime, then the change of the nature and identity of the Islamic Republic of Iran, at least changing the behavior of Iran. When President Trump referred to regime change in Iran, he's referring to that there is a changes in some decision makers or some behaviors of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Then I think this objective, or these objectives, are common between the United States and the Israelis. And I think Israelis misled President Trump, and they put him in the middle of the war. At least the other objective was and is to weaken the capabilities and defense capability of Iran. And I think the final objective is to disarm Iran and also to dismantle Iran. The nuclear capabilities is pretext, I think. They invaded Iran with the justification of seizing these uranium, enriched uranium. And at the regional level, there is a common, I think, objective between Israelis and the American. The most important one is to change the balance of power in favor of the Israelis and in the region, to establish and to exercise a proxy hegemony by the United States by transferring responsibility to Israel. And a regional order that it exclude Iran. I think this is also one objective. And at the international level, I think this war we should put in the context of rivalry between great powers, especially China and the United States, over the international order. American is declining. They are trying their best to prevent to decline. And the Chinese are rising. Then I think one objective of the war was to control the supply chain, energy chain of the China, compared to seizure of oil resources in Venezuela. But actually, there is no, we cannot compare Iran with Venezuela. Then at 3 levels, there were different objectives. I think it was common and is common between Israel and United States, but the priority of these, maybe the first priority of Israel was regime change in Iran, or even the disintegration of Iran. But the point is that both of them failed to achieve any of these objectives. And surprise is that they restricted themselves to reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, this strait was open before the invasion of war. And it shows that they began with the regime change in Iran and end with the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Then it means that they completely, absolutely failed in achieving their goals. Excuse me.
Thank you, Dr. Dehghani. Talking about the strategic failure of Americans and Israelis achieving their goals, objectives, based on the fact that, based on their admission, this has been a premeditated aggression against Iran. Seems that they have been working on organizing such a thing for at least the weeks before the aggression started. But what we saw during the war seemed that they have been planning a very easy win during the war. They thought, based on this misperception, that Iran is weak enough to need only one more push to be overthrown. But after a few days of the war, when Iran balanced back the battlefield, we were witnessing a kind of frequent changes in their objectives, fumbling, attempts to justify the logic of the war, fluctuation of objectives by both leaders, the gaps and the divides between the aggressors, and mounting pressures coming from their own societies and from the whole world. What do you think, Dr. Hadian, was their achievement? Do you think, strategically talking and tactically talking, was there any achievement for Americans, Israelis? And if we want to consider the geopolitical implications of this war, what do you think was their gains from this aggression?
Thank you very much. Of course, I was preparing to answer a different question, but since you asked that question, so I'll answer what you asked. I guess we can say certainly they have had tactical wins. We cannot dismiss that or ignore that. They have been able to destroy a lot of our industries, different kinds of industries, infrastructures, and military bases. So they are the two strongest military force in the planet. That was not surprising to see that they have been able to basically hurt us and damage to a lot of our assets. But strategically, I guess they have lost. You know, if you have listened or read my articles or listened to my talks before, I used to say that we have three important sources of deterrence. One was our allied forces, most importantly Hezbollah in Lebanon. Second was our missiles, and the third was our enriched uranium. But two important assets were added, or somehow I can say even replaced our previous assets. Number one is closure of Strait of Hormuz. No one thought, including myself, that we will be able to do it that that easy. So it has very significant importance that we have been able to close it, and geopolitical implication of it is far, far greater than, for instance, its economic values that a number of my colleagues are talking about, tolls, so forth and so on. But for me, we have already achieved very significant geopolitical assets. We have to preserve it. We have to keep it. We have not to do things that may hurt or damage this important gain of a strategic asset. Thus, this is one of the consequences of this war. And number two is our impact on the global economy. I mean, it has had so much influence, which no one ever thought the importance and significance of such a closure on the global economy. So that's a very important achievement for us. Very important achievement. Plus our missiles proved that it can defend ourselves, and I hope in the future deter any potential aggressor. Thus, these three elements, to me, already are so much significant. No other countries on earth, including United States, will dare to attack us again. Once this war is over, I guess that would give us guarantee. I don't want to say Security Council resolution is not important or Senate's resolution is not important, but by far, what we have achieved is more important. I do not see in the future, foreseeable future, any other countries, China, Russia, Europe, name it, will dare to attack Iran because of what happened. So to me, these are important achievements that we have to preserve it. What worries me is, doing something unintentionally, sometimes intentionally, to hurt and damage this achievement. So I stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Hadian. In fact, you touched upon very important topics, which can be a very good food for the rest of our discussion, and we will get back to it in the later phases of this discussion. But Dr. Farazmand, when I look at your career working in different parts of the region, including the Persian Gulf, including the Middle East, you have been working in this field for more than 3 decades with lots of experiences. You have been familiar with the different Iranian initiatives in the region to try to reach to a solid, strong region to bring back stability, peace, indigenous security arrangement for the region. Talking repeatedly regarding the indivisibility of security, security for all neighbors, talking about security and development to try to promote security to reach to development and secure development to for security of the region. But what happened during the war, based on earlier warnings, repeated earlier warnings of Iran that if Iran faces an existential threat, this will be a regional war. So what do you see in this, coming to Iranian perspective and also regional countries' perspective?
Thank you so much, Ali Reza. I think what happened between Iran and Arab neighboring countries was inevitable. As you know, Iran warned before the war, if the United States and Israel attacked Iran, this war will turn to a regional war. I like very much the term that was used by Dr. Khatibzadeh as a moment of truth, or truth moment between Iran and its Arab neighbors. And let me frame my remarks under this term. There are new realities, there are new patterns came out of the Ramadan war. One of the truths is that Iran had capacities and had cards which was not used before in last 40 or 50 years. One of the capacities was large-scale retaliation against the American bases in the region. Iran, even during the 12-day war, did not use this card. But it showed during the Ramadan war that has this capacity. Iran could control the Strait of Hormuz, but did not use this capacity before this war. And the reality is, despite of unfair and unjust sanctions against Iran, Iran had this card and did not use it. Today it is clear for the international community that the Hormuz Strait is not just a simple passage for energy. Strait of Hormuz is a vital passage for many commodities, for oil, for gas, for helium gas, for ammoniac, for fertilizers. And the reality is that the impact of 40 days war on global economy is bigger than the 4 years war in Ukraine. The impact of this war was much bigger on global economy. How Iran can be sanctioned by international, it is not by international community, it is by United States. While Iran can sanction United States and those who sanctioned Iran. No, it is clear that Iran has this card. These are two new patterns, and I think in any reconfiguration of the situation between north and south part of the Persian Gulf should be considered. That Iran has this new, it is not new, but newly Iran used it. The other reality is about CENTCOM mission. CENTCOM was established during early 80s under the Carter strategy. It was established to contain the Soviet Union because of two developments, two political developments in the region. One was Islamic Republic of Iran revolution, and the other one was Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. And because of these two developments, Carter established CENTCOM. But gradually, Iran became the first mission of CENTCOM. The reality is that CENTCOM is in the region. The headquarters of CENTCOM is in the region, and military bases of CENTCOM are in the region. At least 12 American bases under CENTCOM are in the region. One in Bahrain, one in Qatar, two in Oman, two in UAE, two in Kuwait, one in Oman, and some in other countries. And the other reality is that all aggressions by the United States against Iran, starting from, intercepting of Iranian missiles during the first and second Wadi Sadiq, and also in 12 Days War and in Ramazan War. The aggression against Iran was commanding from CENTCOM, and CENTCOM was responsible for any aggression against Iran during the past, 50 years. And the other reality is our neighbors, unfortunately, hand over part of their territory to the United States, and they could not limit and they could not stop the United States using these bases against their neighbors. When we talk with our Arab brothers about, rapprochement and about a new season relation, usually they speak about Muslim Brotherhood, they speak about morality, they speak about not interfering in internal affairs, and they forget that they hand over part of their territory to an enemy which attack and which have, aggression against their neighbors. The other reality is the structural gap between north and south part of the Persian Gulf. On one part, you have a country which could resist in war and peace against the United States and Israel, and did not say a simple yes to the United States in war and peace, and could resist two serious war against the United States and Israel. And on the other hand, you have countries which never say the simple no to the United States. In one part of the Persian Gulf, you have a nation which has sense of nationalism and sense of independency, and on the other part of the Persian Gulf, you have countries which lack the sense of nationalism. Sense of nationalism has no meaning on the other part of the Persian Gulf. And also, independency has no history on that part of the Persian Gulf. I think any reconfiguration of relation and regional security arrangement should be based on these new patterns and new realities. And I end with another remark. Iran showed that it can attack in large, scale the American bases on the neighboring countries, and at the same time gain the Arab opinion. The Arab opinion during that war and still is in favor of Iran. If you want me to give one evidence, the Arab media phenomenon these days is a young Iranian professor who is sitting in Al Jazeera and having different stages with Arab scholars. And these days, he's the phenomenon of Arab media because he's defending toughly the legitimacy of his country. And I want to use this opportunity to thank, as an Iranian, I want to thank Dr. Ahmadian for his brave contribution in Iranian cyber, resistance against the United States and Israel.
Thank you, Ambassador Farazmand. Dr. Khatibzadeh, I'm sure, of course, you have been talking to the global public opinion, regional public opinion, about what has happened during the war, about Iran's response, very strong and harsh response, in fact, to this aggression. For months, we have been witnessing a repeated and frequent preposterous lies and worn out, cloaked platitude by Americans about Iran's imminent threat towards the United States and the region. They have been repeatedly talking about Iran's weaponized nuclear program. And Iran's response has always been emphasizing on Iranian right, Iranian peaceful, has been focused on two different parts, to defend and to deter. How do you frame Iran's response to this aggression? What kind of lessons can be learned by the aggressors, by this very strong response of Iran?
Well, thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let me, and allow me at the very outset, start with the memory of thousands of innocent lives lost in this historic aggression against the Iranian people and the Iranian nation. With the memory of our leader who assassinated and martyred standing in his office, with his family, unlawfully, against all international law, and against all the morality that many Western countries were claiming that they are actually they are defending that norms. Also with the memory of all those brave Iranian young military personnel who didn't hesitate even a second to give their lives and their bloods for the safety of this nation and for the safety and security of the people of Iran, and are going to be remembered forever in this patriotic, heroic defense against aggressors who recklessly and in a rogue behavior started this war of choice, an unprovoked war against the Iranian people. And with respect, and in respect to the families who suffered from all the losses, especially the beloved ones that they lost. And more important, allow me to add one thing to what Dr. Hadian said. Deep respect to the great nation of Iran as the main deterrence force and deterrent force in this battle. Once forever, they made it clear as an example that nobody can make them to be liability for the today and future of the Islamic Republic of Iran and for today and tomorrow of Iran. They are pillar of preserving Iran, and they're going to be the pillar of the Iran. And I think they showed more than 60 days, they are rallying, millions of rallying around the flag in the streets. Under the military campaign, they started this. Still, they're continuing this with this one simple, logic that invaders are going to be, punished and are going to be taking a very important lesson that there is no hesitation in defending this country. From there, I would like to start by telling you a very important point. After 12-day war, we had an online session here in which I argued that if anything happens again, Iran is not going to be restrained, measured, predictable, because a war of existence is going to be a different war and a different resistance. And it happened. And it happened. It was not a hollow threat. It was not just provocation. It was not rhetorics. It had its own logic. And Americans and Israelis made this example to happen. Iran decided once forever to put an end to this hostility that Americans started many decades ago by not forgiving Iranian out of that 1979 Islamic Revolution, by which they expelled out of Iran. They couldn't digest the change inside Iran. They couldn't accept realities on the ground, and they continued this behavior to punish the Iranian nation because of that revolution. And this war was a moment that we decided to put an end once forever in this unlawful pressure that they are putting on Iran. And they have never been shy to say that they're suffocating Iran, to make the people of Iran to revolt against the government, revolt against the state. They started this war, as Dr. Sajjadpur said, based on wrong assumptions, misleading arguments that Iran is on the verge of collapse. The military of Iran is not, capable of responding to their atrocities. The resilience of Iranian society has come to an end. People of Iran are going to make revolution against its own government, quote unquote, and many more misarguments. Out of this war, now everybody understands, out of this laboratory, which was very expensive laboratory for everyone, including for those who started and launched this war, that not only Iranian nation was not actually up to do anything against its own country, now it is more united. The people of Iran are very much united, and officials and authorities are very much well connected with each other, and also deeply connected to the people of Iran more than ever. You couldn't imagine such a unity inside Iran before this aggression starts. On different levels, you can just follow that. If you ask this question from American administration, you would get different answers based on different audience. Why you started this war? You remember they started by arguing that they are doing these atrocities and this war because Iran was posing an imminent threat, nuclear threat, to the international community. Flat lies. They knew that. They know that. They use it as a cover-up just to justify or misjustify their action. The head of IAEA, the only international watchdog, after 12-day war, quote unquote, he said that Iran was not building a bomb and Iran is not building a bomb, as please do not misuse anything related to the IAEA to justify your aggression against Iran or your war against Iran. That was the moment of truth also. And they bombed our facilities. They actually shut down many of our declared under IAEA safeguard and UN safeguard facilities. And so nobody would buy this sort of cover-up from Americans. So a day or two after they started the war, they changed the narrative to say that, okay, they are up to total or unconditional surrender of Iran. Let me translate for you what it means. It meant, for regime change or a state collapse, they badly failed. Badly failed. First of all, decades they started a campaign to delegitimize, demonize Iran by using the jargon such as regime. What regime means? Regime means a dictator such as Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, or others, and a bunch of cults who are running a country without institutions in place, and also constitutions being intact. The moment that they assassinated the head of a state with this misleading argument and this wrong assumption was the moment that everybody noticed that they are facing a full state in place, institutions in place. They assassinated head of a state, off-duty commanders, many of Iranian officials, and they thought that similar to what happened to Iraq, to Gaddafi and others, the state would be collapsed, or what they call it regime was collapsing. It didn't happen because this is a country rooted in the millennia, and this is the oldest living civilization on earth. I can continue on and on, but I would like to stop here and let you to continue with other panelists, and then if you get back, I would like also to talk about a few things that were raised here, and I would like to touch upon that. I would like just to say one thing. If you allow me, I would like to reflect on what Dr. Hadian said about tactical wins. I'm not challenging anything, but I would like to say that if killing is winning, if destroying is winning, if you just targeting civilians is winning, then you can just define a winning for them. For me, this is atrocities. These are brutality that they have done indiscriminatory against people. 168 innocent kids in the first minutes of this aggression was murdered intentionally in double tap strikes against Minab school, which we are going to forever remember their memory.
Thank you very much. I think we had a very rich first round discussion, which brings me to the second round, talking, I think, a little bit more about the geopolitical implications and consequences of this aggression. in different levels, globally, regionally, and in internal level inside Iran. No doubt it is it goes without saying that this is an entrenched pattern of deliberate, systematic violation of international law. Any accepted rules and norms during last 8 decades. And it is very unfortunate that this breach and flagrant violation is being supported by those very founders and protectors of so-called rules-based international law. There is no rules, there is no norms. I think this is among those consequences and implications of this war. This can be my common question to all distinguished panelists to talk about the geopolitical implications. And I can start here with Dr. Sajjadpour. I think this can be very important for our audience around the world to be familiar with an Iranian perspective on that.
Very good. I think
Yeah,
we
please.
started by analysis, but we have also emotions. And I am happy that Dr. Khatibzadeh brought the issue of these heroic sacrifices of Iranian people. Let me also pay my high respect to all those who were martyred, and I was in section 42 of Behsht Zara Cemetery on Thursday, which is, I think, a microcosm of Iranian people's sacrifice in this imposed war. You will see there the cemeteries of 2-year-old daughter. You see an old man with, let's say, 80 years old, a complete family who were bombed by these aggressors. And I want also to recognize your brother, which was on a voluntary base as a sportsman, participated in defense of our country, and also our former foreign minister, Dr. Kharrazi, and his wife, which really were our mentors. And I think this is a microcosm of Iran. So I would start your question on 3 levels, borrowing Professor Deghani's level of analysis. On the national level, the consequences are so great, including geopolitics. I think Iran discovered, maybe, its strategic, let's say, geostrategic capacity, which can be transformed to actual power. And when we talk about geopolitics, we also include the human side. It's not just the land, the human dimension. And let me bring to your attention and the audience that, look, we were alone. We had a 12 days war, but we defended, and Iranian missiles could really be a deterrent factor, maybe more. They could reestablish Iranian deterrence in a much stronger position. But who made these technological military capabilities? Did we borrow? Did we pay the companies of the other countries to work for us? No, we produce thousands of engineers a year, all by domestic universities. And I think this is not just unique to the engineering industry of Iran and engineering part. In the other parts, Iranians discovered their own capability, capacity. Look what they did with our industrial infrastructures and other parts. But even the attack of a railroad, few strategic points of our railroad system were attacked by these aggressors. But it didn't take more than a few days that we could repair. I think the discovery of this capacity is so significant for Iran. Plus, of course, the moral side, the religious side, the, let's say, the psychological side, the unity that was mentioned, Iran discovered that it is, of course, it doesn't have, let's say, alliances globally, as military alliances are, but it has its own alliance system, mostly from domestic sources and also people around the world. So this is a very significant point, not in the war per se, in the Iranian history. It is where Iranian nationalism showed. It is not just some emotional aspect, it's a strategic capacity. We are not a fabricated nation with 50 years of war, of independence, and is still dependent on global powers. Millenniums of nationalism and defense of this country has made this country strong. And let me end the first level, that we had about, some scholars argue 400, some people argue 600 wars during our long history. The resultant effect is the sense of defense of the country, defending by our own. And I think it is a consequences of this war which would be deepened, and it is, as was mentioned, a deterrence. The second level is regional. I think in the regional level, all what was made during the last 40 years, what we call regional security arrangements, which was mostly based on one concept: borrowed security. Borrowing from United States. You pay and you receive. But what happened to these so many bases of American military presence? And what did Americans do? I read the Arab, let's say, papers and Arab thinking, and they said, this is what some of the Arab scholars argued, that for Americans, Arab countries don't matter. Yes, they have alliances, but what for them matters is just Israel and no other Arab country. So what was the use of this strategic architecture? The third, of course, I want to give more space to my colleagues. I think the international level. On international level, the transformative nature of this war is maybe more significant compared to other periods of strategic struggling globally. And they are significant. Of course, don't forget that still the war is going on. It is a fluid war. We don't know what will happen, as they were not thinking in the beginning that they thought a very quick fixation can happen. But now we have 2 months of war, of course, with a type of, let's say, ceasefire, and as you see, this blockade. But on the global level, first I think is normative side, is, let's say, the moral claim of West. It was to that degree that even voices in the West were echoing their criticism. Because don't forget, Trump said, we are going to destroy your civilization. And the response, of course, the Pope was the most symbolic, let's say, and also on the content-wise response. But so moral collapse of the West, which was already happened during the Gaza war. I think in this war it happened more. The other aspect of it is political and strategic decay of United States. United States didn't become stronger. As Professor Hadian said, strategically, I think it didn't gain, and it didn't turn United States to a strategic, let's say, winner. And look at China and Russia. Of course, they have different patterns of behavior, but I think they are in a different position, especially China. China was somehow in its own rise, maybe an inch, going upper in the ladder of international global power politics. And I think Europe, Where is Europe? NATO. Could you imagine in a couple of months, now we have such talks on NATO. We have this division between Europe and the United States. And let me end on the global level. What's happening in the domestic politics of global players, including the United States? Look at what's happening in the United States. And I think it's very important that we don't forget that this war, I would add, had two strategic goals. One was, and much broader, one was to establish Israeli hegemonic military speaking in the region. And the second was to establish American hegemonic global order. Both failed, but both with domestic ramification. Now, if you look at Israeli domestic debate, if you look at, especially into American debate, you see that the consequences are great and it's going to be significantly impacting. And of course, as I said, we have to be careful in our analysis because still it's a fluid and you are dealing with, of course, a system like United States, a system like Israel, but for the first time you see American system is so personified. You are dealing with a person whose tweets and speeches doesn't create clarity, more confusion, more fluctuation, contradiction, and I think it is not just a person. It shows the difficulty and challenges and contradictions of a global power. So to put it tersely, on the national level, it is, as we say, rise of Iran, revival of Iranian nationalism, and I think it's very significant and needs to be more discussed. On the regional level, the collapse of all architecture, and I would add that concerns about regional hegemony of Israel, including what Turks are talking about, Turkey is talking about. And on the global level, I think it's more qualitative, and it's a shift in the, let's say, strategic positioning of United States, Western powers, both morally and materialistically.
Thank you, Dr. Sajjadpour. In fact, it was a very comprehensive answer to this question, which in fact shows that this aggression has been a multi-layered strategic mistake by the United States especially, which has been misled, as you, Dr. Dehqani, mentioned in your earlier talks, misled by Israelis. And this mistake has been stemming partly from their inability to simultaneously manage multiple self-created crises around the world. Here I can add some new concepts to what Dr. Sajjadpour said, erosion of the international order, which was mentioned, heightening doubts about American trustworthiness and reliability by their allies, exacerbating cracks in traditional alliances and coalitions around the world, expediting the rise of China, and all these issues. So what is your take on this geopolitical implications of the war?
Okay. Based on the interpretation of Dr. Sajjadpour, it was very comprehensive. I had a few words. First of all, this war of aggression leads to discovery of a new dimension of the geopolitics and geostrategy of Iran, a mixed geopolitics and geostrategy dimension of Iran. I mean the mixture of the geography, means the importance of Strait of Hormuz, the strategic culture of Iran. What even we did not realize this importance of the strategic culture of the Iran as a world nation, and the the third one is the resistance of Iranian people, the resilience, the national resilience of Iranian. The mixture of three elements, I think it is the most important national dimension of geopolitical implications of the war. It is very important, I think. At the regional level, I think this war realized that the current arrangements and the previous arrangement, security arrangement doesn't work well. But even it doesn't work at all. Because the American bases in Arab countries was designed to prevent and to detain the attack from outside towards the Arab countries. But in Arab opinions, this is the very important questions. If either the United States is defending us, or we are defending the United States and its proxy, the Israel. Why the wealth and the health of the Arabs should be sacrificed for defending the interests of Israel? And I think fundamentally we'll change the arrangements in the region and the pressure of the people. And actually, there have been two approaches to regional arrangements and security order. I define the regional order as dominant patterns of conflict resolutions and crisis management. Okay, this war showed that the current arrangement doesn't work well. The new arrangement, I think, will establish on the basis of the indigenous arrangements, not exogenous. And we could not deal with the national security as a commodity. We cannot outsource national security to other international actors, especially the Americans. We don't forget that the United States President, what he said to the Kuwait Amir. Then you do not talk about national security of your country. Then it is very important that the dominant patterns of the conflict resolution would be changed based on the kind of regional order that is participatory, coordinated, cooperative. Actually, I don't talk about the collective security, should be realist, that it doesn't work, I think. But based on the balance of power, a new balance of power would be formed, and Iran is one of the most important pillar of these arrangements. And I think the strategic weight of the Israel will decline, even in the strategy of the United States. Because the Americans realize that they cannot rely on Israel to defend American interests in the region. Even they should pay for defending the Israelis. And at the international level, I think the most important lessons or the geopolitical change is that the international system is self-help. Everybody should and could defend himself against the aggressors. International organization, international regimes, of course, they are effective, but they cannot deter the aggressions. They can defend the national interests of the member states. You should defend yourself, your national security and national interest. And I think the world as a whole realized the weight and strength of Iran at the international level, that Iran is at least a very strong regional power. You cannot manage the issues in the region without the role of the Iranian. And I think in the future, the role that Iran can play in the region and at the international scene will, I think, grow and rise. We are witnessing the rise of Iran as a regional power. And these miscalculations about Iran, that Iran has been weakened because, as they call, weakness of its proxy, and we don't call proxy, we call them ally. But okay, regional allies of Iran are important, no doubt about it. But Iran by itself is very strong player in the region and at the international scene.
Thank you, Dr. Hadian, because this is a very important factor to realize what is happening and what is going to happen. I want to be a little bit more focused on the domestic politics of the United States and their allies, especially in Europe, considering the fact that now America First slogan has been interpreted very clearly and evidently as Israel first, and American public opinion now think and object to this reality that they are paying the price for Israel.
That would be good to first consider who are Trump's main audience and main supporter, and think about them. They are called MAGA, Make America Great Again supporters. You think that in the 21st century America, people might vote to someone like Trump, who did not have any experience in politics, who have never ran for any office or elected for an office, and voted for him comparing to Hillary Clinton or later to Kamala Harris. I had two theoretical discussions, which let me not talk about them. One is putting it basically in framework of a conductive, which is a concept which Emanuel Wallerstein used it in his word system theory, and the other one is, which is to a large extent my own, and that's, he constructed a past which never was, but is still very pleasant for these MAGA people. That past had the elements of sort of a racism, sexism, and very much against immigration, foreigners basically. So there have been others who have presented not dissimilar views, but they didn't seem to be very authentic. For the first time, to me, these people, these supporters, thought he's an authentic individual regarding those phenomena which I mentioned: racism, rape, sexism, so forth and so on. So that's why they voted for him, to bring back a past which never existed. So we are dealing then with an audience which is not very informed about international politics, about basically in politics, who has a very naive and simplified view of the domestic or international politics. Thus, it is easy to play with this audience. You know, the first night which he wanted to justify the attacks on Iran, he said that, it is because I did not want Iran to have the bomb. And still is repeating it almost on daily basis. Iran says that I'm not going to have the bomb. And no matter how many times you have said it, there have been so many proposals for that. Basically, the JCPOA was for that, but still he is just repeating it. Why? I have thought so many times why he is repeating it. Because he is basing his argument on the ignorance of his audience. His audience is not sophisticated enough to know that that has never been a question. We have a fatwa, we have laws, we have so many things which prohibit us from having a bomb, to weaponize our nuclear program. 1617 reports of the IAEA has stated that before. And in fact, even the intelligence community of United States has said it repeatedly. But he doesn't care. The beginning, I thought he himself doesn't understand it. He didn't know what's the difference between a centrifuge and a washing machine. Both of them would spin, and he think, even if they have explained it to him, that's the case. But later, I thought, no, there have been enough people telling him there is a difference between a washing machine and centrifuges. And enrichment means this, and bomb means this. So I guess now he knows it. But the point is, he has committed himself. He has waged war about it. So now, in order to say that I have gotten something which President Obama could not got it, so he has to insist on zero enrichment in Iran. And enriched uranium, which we have, wasn't there. It is basically because of what he did in his first term that we have so much enriched uranium. So he created the problem himself, and in order to resolve that problem, he commit crimes which would make situation worse. Wars which he waged are unnecessary, illegal, and basically they are war crimes that he is committing himself. So to me, his audience is very important. And thanks God, important figure of the MAGA are criticizing that. Why did you wage that war? That was not America first, as you mentioned. That was Israel's first argument. But Israel knew from the beginning what he wanted. Netanyahu knew exactly what he wants, unlike Trump. Netanyahu understands perfectly what is centrifuge, what is enrichment, and what is his goal. Basically, regime change, disintegration of Iran, collapse of the country, and so these are the things which he wants. He knows exactly what he wants. And he was able to use the ignorance of Trump in order to sell him these arguments, his arguments and his objectives. To convince him these are your objectives. You can win this war easily, quickly, and you will be a hero. Last 47 years, no other president have been able to deal with this issue, and you have the courage, you have the skills, you have the support to do it. And he bought the argument and told him Iran has become weakened, and this is the best and the last chance to deal with Iran. So that's why I guess he waged the war, and for a while he was able to sell to his audience, but I guess not anymore. Today, to me, he's going to lose the House. Almost certainly he's going to lose the House. If this war continues, I guess he's going to lose the Senate too. Although it is far more difficult, but there is a possibility there. So that's why domestic politics is very important. And my last point regarding Saeed's about the tactical issue, that's a war crime which he committed, killing innocent people unlawfully. He didn't have any permission from the Security Council or, in fact, even his own Congress. But he did it. But it still doesn't mean that America is not powerful. They have been able to hurt us. If I'm not mistaken, Americans have been able to conduct about 14,000. They have hit 14,000 targets or attacks. So it means that they are projecting power. They have come from another part of the world, and they have been able to attack us. So that's to me that's an expression of power. So they are powerful, but are they just? Are they legal? No. Have they committed crime? Certainly. But it is important not to dismiss the power of America. America still is the only global power. The only global power. We don't have any other global power. We have regional powers, China, Russia, Europe. But America, due to its navy, is the only global power. So that would be good to have these in mind when we discuss about them, and that would be good to acknowledge the fact that this is the fact, but criticize it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hadian, for your very useful elaboration of the domestic politics of the United States and the impact of the Israelis on this decision-making process inside the United States, which is very telling what is happening in the real ground. Ambassador Farazmand.
One more thing. 1 minute,
Okay,
promise.
please.
There is an argument also in the U.S. that that's a very intentional on the part of President Trump to send contradictory messages. That's a part of the art of the deal and confusing the audience. There is some truth in it, no doubt about it. But that would reflect the confusion in his mind too. It's too much. It is not something which you say that, okay, it is, he wants to create ambiguity, a constructive, structured ambiguity. It is not, it is too much, too far, with any stretches of the mind that, that's very intentional. To observer like myself, it's reflection of confusion and ambiguity of the mind itself. Thank you.
And the reflection of his megalomania of his mindset. Ambassador Farazmand, about the implications and consequences of the war. Most probably, I think most of us believe that one very hot area of this war has been the region, Persian Gulf and the Middle East. What are the consequences of this war on this region? I mean, the wider region, or not only Persian Gulf, but the Middle East, and what will a future security arrangement in the region look like?
Today, there's a summit in Saudi Arabia. For the first time after the war, the leaders of GCC are gathering in Saudi Arabia, and I think they are trying to unify their position about the situation in the region. But I'm doubtful about unification of position between these countries, because during the war there was at least 3 different approaches by these countries regarding the war. Qatar and Oman were opposing before the war, during the war, and after the war, the use of military option. And they wanted to be supportive to a peaceful solution, and they were engaged in mediation between Iran and the United States. Saudi Arabia openly was opposing the military option, but there were some doubts about the private position, and there were some, news and reports about private discussion between Saudi Arabia and the United States. But openly they were opposing the war, and they say that we are against military option. UAE and Bahrain had overlap position with Israel. They were supporting, military option against Iran, and especially after the war, during the war, they were with the idea of defeating Iran in military option. Now they are gathering in Saudi Arabia, and they try to unify their positions. Anyhow, I think the future between Iran and GCC country will be a different, future. We have a new mandate for negotiation with GCC countries. I don't believe that collective security arrangement is possible in short term, because there is no collective security arrangement between themselves. Even the alliance with the United States is not in a collective, form. Each individual country has its, security pact with the United States. How they can, create a security, arrangement with Iran, while there are at least 3 different approaches about Iran. But I think bilaterally, we can work better with these countries. In the past, when we were opening, discussion with them in track 1 or track 2, they were starting by issues which I think will not be on the table in future. Iran never accept to discuss with these countries over its territorial sovereignty. They should forget to speak about Iranian islands anymore. This is not the issue between Iran and these countries, and even this is not the issue anymore between Iran and UAE. They have to forget to speak about the support of Iran, of alliance of Iran with existent, groups. This, existence axle is not against Saudi Arabia, is not against UAE, is not against, Bahrain. But we have some tangible and measurable issues with these countries. The function of US military bases in the region will be on the top of the list of discussion with these countries, because it is tangible and it is measurable. The anti-Iranian function of these military bases will be on the top of the list of negotiation with them. They had 2 wars against Iran. It was commented by the military bases in the region. And I think we have to face this reality. This is the truce moment between Iran and these countries. And I think it is the right of Iran to ask, guarantee that these bases will not be used against Iran in future. But the problem is that they may not give this guarantee because they don't have, sovereignty over these bases. But there is another reality, that there is a frustration among these countries from the function of the bases in supporting their security. Now, it was demonstrated that these bases did not support the security of the countries. They established to support and defend Israel more than these countries. Maybe between these two, realities, first, Iran has the right to speak about the function of these military bases, and the frustration from the other side, maybe there will be a common exit and common solution to discuss about the new arrangement in the region.
Thank you very much. It is, in fact, very helpful to, at least for our neighbors, to understand an Iranian perspective. Listening to you as an experienced diplomat working for several decades in the region, Dr. Khatibzadeh, one more important issue here, at least for the whole world, is regarding the Strait of Hormuz. The latest state of affairs, this special condition of war governing the Strait of Hormuz and fundamental change in circumstances there. There are so many questions regarding that. What is Iran's attitude to regarding that very important transit and this very important strait? What is the latest state of affairs there?
Thank you very much. To give a little bit of debated flavor to this very panel, I would like to just reflect on Nasser's again. Since we have been in different back and forth, so let me just say that I'm not talking about numbers. Numbers speaks for themselves. So I'm not talking about the biggest army in the world or these sort of things. I think that more than power projection, the defining element to see if a country is enough powerful to achieve its goal, to see if the goals that have been defined could have been achieved through power projection or not. So the main question is that if United States, by killing innocent people indiscriminately, destroying civilian and civil infrastructures, by targeting residential areas, even by assassinating head of state and off-duty commanders and top officials, have been able to achieve anything of its defined goals. And this is the moment that everybody can judge on that. But let's leave it there, and I will get back to your very important question. What is the current state of affairs and the Strait of Hormuz? I think it is hard to say that the war is ended. Until the war is not ended, in all fronts, I think that the peace cannot be guaranteed. And because of that, I think Iran cannot risk to compromise on its national security. Iran is going to continue to remain on high alert and on defensive posture on different fronts, and this is the fact until we can achieve a sort of comprehensive understanding that we are going to have end to this war on all fronts, which means a sort of a stable situation afterward. It is also very hard to trust the other side's intention. First, bearing in mind and given the past histories, and I'm not talking about years ago, I'm talking about few months ago, 2 rounds of negotiations and betrayal to diplomacy happened just recently. Actually, we were in negotiation. The negotiation table was blew up by Americans when everybody was promising that we are going to achieve, and we are just inches away from reaching to an agreement. So this is very hard for Iranians and for Iranian decision makers to trust the other side. And this is not the issue. The issue of trust, of course, is not the issue for negotiation and tackling the differences, but at least a minimum of understanding about other side's good intention is needed to start the process. Nevertheless, I think that Iran has decided to test if the other side is ready to put an end to this hostility and to end the war. We doubt, and we are very much skeptical, because of the past history and because of what almost all panelists said here. Israel firsters are those who are making decisions, or actually shaping decisions in the United States. Netanyahu is very much opposing because he believes that it is once a century opportunity for him that by American taxpayers' money and American soldiers' blood, he can win a battle of hegemony that he believes that he can, win in this region. Of course, let aside if the hegemony is possible in this region or not, but obviously he's going to practice that. And he's so happy, he's glad that once at least one of the presidents in the United States said about his, misarguments and naive arguments, but very much in line with what he thinks that it is good for the regime in Tel Aviv. But anyway, because of all these issues, the state of affairs right now is very much under big question mark regarding if we can move on to the end of the war in a meaningful way. But Iran has put forward everything needed for that in Islamabad and after that. And we think that the logic that Iran used and still is using is very much correlating with the realities on the ground. We had 2 rounds of negotiations on nuclear issues. We made a great concession. The IAEA Director General, Mr. Grossi, also confirmed that. Mr. Powell, Secretary of National Security Council of UK said that. Those who were attending in the meeting, including Foreign Minister Boussaidi, said that significant progress actually made in Geneva. Nevertheless, Americans started this aggression. So Iran says that 2 rounds of intensive talks on nuclear issues, we couldn't achieve anything because of maximalist demands and because of some delusions that the American side, they do have, that they can make Iran an exception from international law. And this is why that Iran said that this time, let's focus on the imminent threat, which is going to touch everybody and is going to affect everybody. And this imminent threat is resumption of war. Is going to affect everybody. And this is why that we think that we have to focus on ending this war on all fronts and addressing the root cause of this. And we are going to address that. What we suggested in Islamabad and afterward still is in the line with that. And we are not going to risk for anything related to Iran's national sovereignty and territorial integrity or national security of Iran. We think that it is meaningful. We can focus on, first of all, evading from this deadlock of nuclear issues, which there is a canyon of different opinion about that. We have to rely on international law and IAEA framework for that. And of course, we need more time and nuance and more complicated or maybe comprehensive settlement of disputes over that, and focus on the imminent issue of ending the war, which is very much important. The Strait of Hormuz is also very much related to that. Let me start with one important thing. I'm seeing still very much cognitive inaccuracies in the United States, if not distortion. Wrong assumptions in the United States still continue. And misarguments, such as that continuation of blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is going to change the strategic calculus of Iran. And they are betting on that. They are gambling on that. Still, they don't understand. I would like to be crystal clear on that. We are on defense. We don't have any goal or any strategy, rather to defeat the aggressor, meaning that we are going to prevent them to achieve any of their goals inside Iran for today of Iran and tomorrow of Iran. And any country which is defending, it is the only strategy and goal which is defining. Based on that, Iran is not going to change its strategic calculus by any economic pressure. Let aside this sort of blockade, which is taking hostage the whole global economy by America. And remember that few days ago, our foreign minister said, based on the understanding and based on the ceasefire terms and conditions, that we are going to allow ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz and reopen it based on the agreement of the ceasefire. Immediately, minutes after that, President Trump tweeted that he's going to continue blockade, the blockade. And it shows that they have a misargument that this may change the strategic calculus of Iran from resistance to unconditional surrender. Wrong. 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 Iran is going to continue defense. Nobody in Iran is going to change the strategic calculus to go from full resistance to the last bullet and last soldier to unconditional surrender, and it is very important. What is going to change the strategic calculus of all sides is being ready to respectfully and on an equal footing to end the war, and I think this very much correlating with what we are just suggesting on the table.
Thank you very much. Here I want to pinpoint some very important phrases and concepts you raised here regarding exception and exceptionalism, in which we are witnessing for years, as Israel has always been considered as an exception to the international law, international relations. Based on that, based on the unconditional support coming from the United States and some of their allies, Israelis have been addicted to aggression, has been addicted to heinous crimes around the world. But as you mentioned, and this is very important to repeat here, that Iran does not and cannot be an exception to the international law. And this is, I think, very important for the whole world to understand Iranian attitude to the current war and the current negotiations. For our audience, for them to know, we wanted and we tried to have an interactive panel here, but unfortunately, because of some technical problems, we could not provide the facilities for that. But we have received some recorded video messages from some of our audience, and here, if it's ready, we want to have one of them, which has been sent by Mr. Andrei Dostal, a member of European Parliament. I think it would help to enrich our discussion to have a voice from our colleagues in Europe. Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, warm greetings from the European Parliament in Strasbourg. I am Andrej Dostal, member of the European Parliament from the Czech Republic, and it is my honor and pleasure to address your conference. With sadness, we have seen the United States and Israel started a war against Iran. On the first day of the war, they murdered Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and massacred more than 160 children in Minab. I was among the first members of parliament who sent letters of condolences to the Iranian ambassador in Brussels. The law and facts are clear. This was an illegal and unprovoked act of aggression. It took place while Iran was negotiating in good faith, and it's unacceptable that the United States continues to use peace talks as a prelude to surprise missile strikes. And one of the claimed pretexts changed of the regime is illegal per se, being in clear contradiction with the United Nations Charter principle of sovereign equality of all states. Threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of a state is as unacceptable in case of Iran as in cases of Venezuela or Cuba. When I hear the President of the United States exclaim that a civilization will die tonight or that he will bomb Iran to the Stone Age, I recount similar threats from a German dictator 90 years ago against my country, Czechoslovakia. These threats were the prelude to the worst war of the 20th century, and we should defend the principles of the United Nations established by people of the world after the abyss of the Second World War, so it is never again repeated. Unfortunately, so far, the response of the European Union and of our Parliament has been weak and shameful. The European Union failed to uphold international law and the United Nations Charter. The European Union so far failed to denounce the perpetrators of war crimes and revoke the association agreement with Netanyahu's Israel. The leadership of European Parliament even denied access to its premises to Iranian diplomats, while still accepting contacts with Americans and Israelis. But, as a Czech poem says, only he is worthy of freedom who values the freedom of all. Serving the interests of American hegemony does not do Europe any good. One of the three major world economies, Europe, USA and China, European Union now fares the worst. And of these three, the economic impact of this war will economically harm Europe the most. The American and Israeli war, disrupting essential trade and flow of resources, directly harms European interests, and we should expend all diplomatic leverage against them to abandon the aggression hand in hand with other peaceful states of the world. But we don't. And our loyal adherence to American hegemony got us so far only tariff threats, a very unequal trade deal, and threats against Greenland. Iranian ambassador, with whom I had honor to speak, shared with me a wisdom. You can wake a man who is sleeping, but you cannot wake someone who is pretending to be asleep. There will be many of us in Europe who will adhere to the might is right, preach Western hegemony, and denounce international law out of inertia, out of blindness, or due to financial interests. But the political resistance is growing, led by countries like Spain of Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. Many people in the West came to regret the war in Iraq 2 decades ago. We will soon come to regret this war with Iran as well, which is, in the words of Talleyrand, not just a crime, but a blunder. Israel too has lost the support of the great majority of Europeans and Americans who have not forgotten the genocide of the Palestinians. The tides are turning. Let me speak about hope in the midst of fear and destruction. The hope for a better world, once again governed by the principles of the United Nations Charter, where defense against aggression is supported and foreign interference in domestic matters is denounced. A world where all peaceful nations can trade and prosper, where politicians at conferences may talk less about wars and more about Eurasian trade routes, about comparative advantages, about technology transfers, about common investments, about cooperation in science, culture, health or education. I wish success to your conference about scenarios ahead. I sincerely hope that the scenario which will actually happen will be the scenario of cooperation, prosperity, stability and lasting peace. God bless, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. In fact, it's very heartwarming to listen to this kind of pronouncements by our colleagues, friends around the world. And this, I think, was one of the most important consequences of the war, to awaken, to bring a more awakening around the world about what is happening in different parts of the world, and talking about the realities on the ground, and I'm very grateful for that. We have only about 5-10 minutes till the end of this, I think, very rich discussion. For the last round, I humbly request all our speakers, panelists here to be very brief. And my question is about scenarios ahead and the lessons which can be learned from this aggression against Iran. Dr. Sajjadpour, please.
I think since scenarios take time, I go to lessons. Lesson 1A, I think awareness, analysis, and awakening. This is very important. We should be alert about these vicious actors. We should have good analysis and be aware and awaken the other. And B, build your defense. This war showed that we should take any single and parcel elements of our country more seriously and defend. And of course, build a regional defense which is mostly, let's say, done by the region, not by the others. And my C is contextual dynamism should be taken seriously. That means the context is dynamism, is dynamic. Let me end by referring to what we said about American assumptions. I think assumptions in the United States, in Israel, is a mechanical assumption that we do this, then collapse. We blockade Persian Gulf, then Iran would surrender. Here, human life, Iran, the region is a dynamic, let's say, process, is a dynamic situation. So take this contextual dynamism more seriously, and don't forget that Iran is not an object to play with. Iran is an actor with all its capability and capacity.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Dehqani.
And I also refer to lessons, but the lessons from war for Americans and Arabs, not
So
for.
you teach them?
Yes, I want to teach. I hope they have learned from these bad experience by waging war against Iran. First, I think if the American decision makers and the decision takers, especially the US president, prefer and want to live in peaceful existence or competitive existence with Iran, definitely should differentiate between agreement, deals, whatever he called, with capitulation and surrender. You cannot talk with the Iranian people, then we mean deal by we mean surrender or capitulation. Forget about it. Then I think once again he is in a strategic miscalculations, not Iran. And the second one, I think the Americans, I have said again and again, should recognize the existence of the Islamic Republic of Iran and respect, to recognize and respect the identity of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and most important, the national interest of Iran. You cannot deal with Iran. You want to change the identity. You want to change the political system. You want to deny or reject the national interest of Iran. And for our neighbor Arabs in south of Persian Gulf, I think the most important lessons is that the security in the region is interconnected. You cannot separate Iran security from the other country's security. That security is as a whole. And you cannot rely on the foreigners to supply or to ensure security for the region. We are neighbors. The Dutch came and went. The Portuguese came to the region and went. The Great Britain did the same things. But we are living here for thousands of years, and we should live for thousands of years. Then the basic or the principal policy of Iran is neighborhood policy and the good neighborliness cooperation with our neighbors. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Hadian, please.
I wish to say that when I said President Trump audience, I meant supporter. That's what I meant, that his supporters are not all of his supporters, basically. Number two is there is a difference between war and defense. You know, war by far is the most important issue in international theory and the world politics. And human beings have been involved in articulating different theories and providing different causes and reasons for why war happens, why it continues, how it stops, so forth and so on. I wish to warn my own fellow Iranians. So far we have been defending ourselves. And America waged a war. Personally, I don't believe even in the war of necessity. No war is necessity. So these just war theories which express that, okay, if there is an imminent threat, so there is a justification for waging a war. In fact, even I don't buy that argument as well. There are other ways of containing that threat. Thus, no war is legitimate and is just. Only defense is just. So far we have been defending ourselves. But when the opportunity arises that we stop the aggressors, we have to embrace it. What we did in Iran-Iraq war, to me, up to a certain point, was legitimate. It was a defense. But after a while, it was not. I wish we do not repeat the same thing here. We don't go for defeating the enemy or basically give him a lesson. Once we successfully defended ourselves, we have to stop there. And last point, regarding related to the same point, is a consensus. Thanks God, there is a consensus here in Iran. There is a very tiny minority who may disagree with the consensus. Dr. Ghalibaf and Foreign Minister Araghchi and the others represent that consensus. They should be supported, and they have to know that absolute majority of the population and the elites of society would support them. They have to have the courage, the wisdom to deal with the issue and to make the necessary deal that they seem be appropriate one. So they have the backing of all the major power centers of the country. Head of the branches of the government, the supreme leader, the parties, the reformists, the principalists. There is only one teeny minority which do not have that much power in Iran. So I wish them well, and I hope that they get this opportunity. I wanted to say something about the region, which I leave it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Farazman.
I think this tough resistance by Iranian people had many lessons for different parties. For Europe, it was the first time during the second term of Trump, Europe could say no to the United States. If there was not tough resistance by Iranian people and Iranian military forces, I think the Europe would go with the United States and would stand with Trump. But they understood that this is not in their favor to stand with Trump. For the region, I think they realized, finally, that the Americans are not here to defend them. They are here to support and defend Israel. And I think this is a very important lesson for the regional countries. And for Trump himself, I think Iran could show him that he is not anymore the king of the world.
Thank you. Dr. Khatibzadeh, please.
Thank you very much. If you allow me, I would like to start with lesson and then end with a scenario ahead to just address, comprehensively, since I am going to be the last panelist in this very, I think, very dynamic and debative panel that you just shaped. I think that regarding lessons, the first lesson which I can say is that about the people of Iran, the nation of Iran, not only those who are residing inside Iran, but all those who are living abroad. We are now facing a new reality, born-again nation, a nation which is reborn out of this, heroic, patriotic defense, and this is something that I'm very much proud. A lesson for Americans and Israelis. There's a saying in English that be careful about what you are wishing for. They wished for a geopolitical change, they got it. But I'm not sure if it is in line with what they wished for, and Iran is going to be a responsible player, but a player rooted in the civilization and in the millennia, and I think they have to be able to digest the realities on the ground and accept the reality of New Iran, which is going to help them to be in the region. Also a lesson to those who waged war. War is not a solution, it's part of the problem. We are going to continue our defense, but I think that there is no alternative to diplomacy. All our alternatives to diplomacy are very much unattractive, and I hope that they seize the opportunity to end the war based on equal terms and conditions, which Iran just proposed now for many weeks. For the region, I think that Ambassador Farazman said, but I would like to say that this defense was also for the region. I think that we stopped this delusion of Israelis that they can have hegemony over others, and that was important, and I hope that the whole region understand the sacrifice that Iran did because of the region as an anchor of stability in this region, and I would like to extend it for the global audience that also standing to the buller who is going bullying the others is also a great achievement. But about scenarios ahead, there are those who are debating that the worst case scenario is the most probable one because still we are in a very unstable situation because of what is happening in Washington and Israeli forces and Netanyahu's surprise attacks and committing to different crimes. But I personally would like to think that wisdom and prudence prevails, and we can see a new set of arrangements in which the Strait of Hormuz is open to everybody based on the, of course, safe passage and the needed protocol for that. And also everybody can enjoy a stable region and a stable world. And I would like to thank you and also all our colleagues that could formulate this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe you agree with me that we had a very rich discussion. As was mentioned, this war was not our choice. This war was imposed on us. But Iranians have shown throughout history that they do not yield under pressure. They do not surrender for unconditional, for what is that so-called unconditional surrender, which is not possible. This is a patriotic war for us. We still believe that we are involved in the war, and today is the 60th day of the war. This is only a pause. We all hope for the best. We hope that wisdom justice and fairness will prevail, and this can bring peace, stability, prosperity, and tranquility to the region. This is very interesting that tomorrow is the National Day of Persian Gulf in Iran, and we hope the best for our region, which Iran has always pushed for and Iran has strived for. Thank you very much again, and I hope to be able to meet you soon in person, and I'm very grateful for our very excellent panelists, and please join me for applauding our very excellent panelists. Thank you very much. آقا خیلی ممنون.